Good evening, everyone. I'm Tanya Bamford, Chairwoman of the Montgomery Township Board of Supervisors. On behalf of my fellow board members and staff, I'd like to welcome you to the June 8th, 2020 Montgomery Township Board of Supervisors meeting. As we've been doing since April, this evening's meeting is being live streamed online to comply with Governor Wolf's orders and to do our part to flatten the curve during the COVID-19 pandemic. We thank you all in advance for your patience as we attempt to conduct the business of the township with transparency and in compliance with the state's Sunshine Law. As with our previous meetings, our agenda and meeting packet were posted on the township website. Additionally, questions were able to be submitted in advance of the meeting via email. Questions may also be submitted throughout the course of the meeting using the chat feature that's on the right side of your screen if you're tuned in and watching right now. Before we begin the meeting, I want to take a moment to acknowledge what a tumultuous few weeks we've had recently on top of the COVID-19 pandemic that we're experiencing. We had those violent storms roll through last week that knocked out power in a good deal of the township last week. And recently also the nation was rocked by the senseless murder of George Floyd, sparking protests across the globe. In fact, several of our board, including myself, had an opportunity to attend a peaceful protest that was conducted here in the township over the weekend. On behalf of our board, I just want to take this moment to state that we stand with those fighting against racism and violence towards people of color, and Black Lives Matter. As always, our thoughts go out to all those who have been impacted by COVID-19. To date, we have had 204 residents test positive for COVID-19, and unfortunately, we've had 28 fatalities to death. That said, we are in the yellow zone now, the yellow phase of the reopening. So we have effectively flattened the curve, and I want to applaud everybody for their efforts, and I hope that you will remain vigilant so that we can continue to see a reduction in those numbers. With that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now Deb Rivas, our recording secretary, will conduct our roll call.
Good evening. At this time, I will take a roll call for the Board of Supervisors in attendance for the June 8th, 2020 board meeting. Chair Tanya Bamford.
Present.
Vice Chair Matt Quigg.
Present.
Supervisor Annette Long.
Present.
Supervisor Beth Staub.
Present.
And we've been made aware that Supervisor Candace Chimera is unable to join us this evening. Thank you. In addition to the Board of Supervisors, the following individuals are also participating in our meeting tonight. Township Solicitor Robert I. Nosey, Township Manager Carolyn McCreary, Chief of Police Scott Bendig, Director of Planning and Zoning Bruce Shoup, Director of Finance Brian Shapiro, Director of Administration and Human Resources Ann Shade, Director of Fire Services Bill Wegman, Director of Information Technology Rich Greer, Director of Public Works Kevin Costello, Director of Recreation Floyd Schaefer, and Public Information Coordinator Kelsey Whalen. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Agenda item number 4 is announcements. And we just have a few things we want to run through. Of course, as I mentioned, Montgomery County recently transitioned to the yellow phase as of June 5th, 2020. We hosted a town hall last week with Montgomery County Commissioner Dr. Val Arkush to discuss that transition and the differences for our community, both for our businesses as well as our residents. It was a super informative meeting, and if you didn't have an opportunity to watch it yet, you can actually view it on the township's website, and there's a link to it on our Facebook page as well. So definitely check it out. It was really informative, lots of great information shared. All township meetings for the month of June will continue to be virtual using Microsoft Teams like this. You can see the list of those meetings and find links again on our website, which is Montgomery monttwp.org. Our Business Development Partnership Committee is hosting a live event this Wednesday, June 10th at 11:30 a.m. This is a wonderful program that they've put together to help business owners understand the opportunities made available to them through the CARES Act. The event's going to feature a panel of specialists who will be able to discuss what you need to know about the CARES Act as employers as well as employees. The event will be hosted on Microsoft Teams, and there'll be time for questions at the end. For those of you who may not know, the CARES Act and Supplemental Act of Congress were passed to help businesses cope with the massive economic impact that the shutdown of the U.S. economy has caused. The live meeting link can be found on the township's website at montgomerytwp.org and on the township's Facebook page at facebook.com/monttwp. Moving on to agenda item number 5, we have a statement from our Chief of Police, Scott Bendick.
Good evening, everyone. The events of the past few weeks have noticeably impacted our community. The criminal actions of the Minneapolis police officers and subsequent repercussions continue to traumatize not only our residents, but business owners as well. This evening, I thought it was essential to update you regarding the recent township events surrounding these unsettling times. As you may mention, on May 30th and June 6th, peaceful protests were held on the Route 202 Parkway and Route 309. On both occasions, members of the department spoke with the event organizers working to facilitate their demonstration while ensuring their safety. Obviously, should additional events be scheduled, we will continue to work with the organizers so their voices can be heard. Social media threats regarding the looting of township businesses have been made over the past few weeks. Patrol strategies have been altered, and staffing has been added to ensure the safety and well-being of our businesses as they work to emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. Our department continues to reach out to those we serve to address their fears and concerns. This is occurring through several different means in addition to our social media platforms. These efforts include engaging with residents individually regarding questions surrounding department policies or practices that may have come into question as a result of this tragic event. We are also engaging with members of the Business Development Partnership to deliver a message of commitment and assistance to our businesses post-COVID-19. We are also arranging engagement opportunities with various advocacy groups and individual citizens, including our local NAACP and worship centers within the township. Unfortunately, with these tragic events and disturbing events, relationships and trust that our department has worked so hard to build with those we serve have been negatively impacted. The police department will continue to do our part to change this narrative and rebuild those relationships one interaction at a time. In closing, I would like to thank all the township residents that have showed their support, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight at the board meeting regarding this very tragic and horrifying event. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief. I think it's in this moment really critical that we maintain open dialogue with these various different constituencies. And I applaud your effort and all the outreach that you've done to date.
Thank you.
Any other comments for the Chief?
Chief, just briefly, something I think is important to point out to people that just may not know this is one of the things that you said that really hit home to me is that this is something that will, in terms of trust, be rebuilt. It's one interaction at a time. Obviously, it's every single time that a police officer is encountering a citizen, no matter what their race is, trying to build that level of trust up. And one of the things I think that we've done a good job as a township with is transparency. There's one thing that time and time again, as these events tragically happen, and they happen far too often, and when they happen, when you have the outcry, one of the problems that arises is that there's no transparency. And one of the things I think that you, as chief and the department as a whole, should be commended for is the fact that we are transparent with the interactions between our police department and individuals on the basis of race. That's a statistic that we keep track of, that we are not required to keep track of. And I think it's fantastic that you do that because it allows us to look at the data and it allows us to analyze the data to hold ourselves to the high standard that we should. So that's just something I think that is necessary to put out there, the good work that we're doing in order to try to, as best we can, and obviously there's no good way or perfect way to do this, but one step at a time towards addressing the problems of systemic racism. So I just want to commend you on the transparency that the Township Department and you as obviously the face of the department put forward. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments for the chief? Thank you again, Chief. Well, moving on to agenda item number 6, public comment. Persons wishing to make public comment during the meeting on any items not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Public comment will also be provided following each item on the agenda. If you are viewing our live board meeting event, you'll see a window to the right of your screen that will allow you to type in a comment or a question to be presented to the Board of Supervisors. Please remember to list your name and address for the record. The township also previously provided an email address for folks to be able to send their comments or questions to the board in advance. At this time, do we have any comments or questions through the email option? Deb?
No, we have not received any questions by email, and as of yet, we have none on our live event.
Okay, thanks, Deb. So we'll move on then to agenda item number 7, announcement of executive session. Robert Iannozzi, solicitor for the township.
Good evening. This afternoon, June 8th at 3:30, the board met telephonically to discuss one matter of personnel and 3 matters of potential litigation, all of which are legitimate topics for executive session under Pennsylvania's Sunshine Law.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 8, consider approval of minutes for the May 26, 2020 board meeting. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 9, proposed resolution establishing guidelines and a policy for when outdoor sales of merchandise and outdoor dining is allowed during the coronavirus pandemic. Bruce Shoup, Director of Planning and Zoning.
Thank you. For the board's review tonight is a resolution establishing guidelines and policies for limited outdoor sales of merchandise and outdoor dining for existing businesses in the township for a period of 90 days in the areas of the property where it might otherwise be prohibited. Of the guidelines, and we're fortunate that a lot of the municipalities in the county and in Bucks County were all following a very similar guideline. Some are a little bit more intense, and some are less, but it's more or less everybody's using the same format. So if you've got businesses in multiple locations, the regulations may look very similar to each other. And this all started with Plumstead Township, but they were the first to establish something, and then we all were thinking about it, but it gave us a good guideline. If you wish, I'll read the guidelines, that's established, or you can do it, Madam Chairwoman.
Just a resolution?
Yeah, the resolution has the guidelines.
You want me to read the whole resolution, or?
If you want me to read them, I mean, whatever your pleasure is.
You're more than welcome to, Bruce.
Okay. Whereas Governor Wolf issued a proclamation of a disaster emergency on March 6, 2020, authorizing political subdivisions to act as necessary within the powers conferring by the proclamation of disaster emergency to meet exigencies of the emergency, and whereas May 1st, 2020, the governor's office presented a plan entitled Process to Reopen Pennsylvania, which will ease the social gathering restrictions in phases based upon the public health indicators while requiring ongoing compliance with the Center of Disease Control and Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines for social distancing and workplace safety. And whereas the federal and state health, and regulatory agencies have called for the implementation of safety measures such as the increase of workplace ventilation, increased physical distance between employees and customers, and alteration of hours based on the building size and the number of employees. And whereas the safety measures are advanced and made more efficient by the temporary allowance of outdoor dining and outdoor sales of merchandise, provided that such dining and outdoor sale merchandise occur consistent with all state, federal statutes, regulations, and orders. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery Township hereby establish guidelines and policies for outdoor sales of merchandise and outdoor dining of existing businesses in the township for a period of 90 days in areas of the property where it might otherwise be prohibited, providing the following. The merchants seeking to use the outdoor space, number one, the merchants seeking to use the outside space to conduct outdoor sales of merchandise and or outdoor dining shall be responsible for compliance with all state, county, and federal statutes, regulations, and orders, as well as written permission from the landlord or owner of the property. The terms of the resolution and the guidelines to conduct outdoor sales of merchandise and or outdoor dining expressly do not excuse the business from complying with the state, federal, state orders, PA-LCB regulations, including but not limited to those relating to COVID-19 mitigation, nor pre-existing statutes, regulations such as the Pennsylvania Department of Health requirements related to outdoor dining. Number two, business seeking the use of outdoor space to conduct outdoor sales of merchandise and or dining shall nevertheless provide sufficient parking to meet the needs of their customers. It is a business, if a business uses part of the sidewalk, the business shall allow sufficient space for pedestrian and handicapped individuals to traverse the sidewalk. If a business uses spaces in the parking lot, excluding handicapped spaces, the business shall provide for safe separation between the customers and the vehicle with the use of physical barriers. Example will be Jersey barriers or concrete dead weights, which are concrete blocks that weigh about 2,400 pounds each. Okay, they're not that expensive. They're probably about $30 a piece to purchase locally. It must be approved by the zoning officer, police department, fire department, and shall not occupy any handicap parking area. Emergency services shall not be impeded by the use of the sidewalk or parking lot areas. A plan shall be remitted for the approval prior to using the outdoor area. The merchant seeking to use outdoor space to conduct outdoor sales of merchandise and or dining shall abide by nuisance regulations found in the Montgomery Township Code. The use of open flame outside the building is prohibited. This resolution and authorization to conduct outdoor sales of merchandise and or outdoor dining in outdoor spaces shall expire 90 days after the effective date. Resolved by the convened meeting of the Board of Supervisors, Montgomery Township, on this 8th day of June, 2020.
Thanks, Bruce.
You're welcome.
So, any questions for Bruce? So Bruce, so just to be clear, in order to participate in the outdoor sales, they have to comply with other related laws and ordinances from the county, from the state, from the federal government. And they also have to submit a plan to your office, correct?
Yes, we're not asking for anything fancy, just something that we can understand what they're doing, and if we have questions, we'll reach out to them. We've already had people reach out to us.
That's perfect. I think this is wonderful, and I'm also aware that we're sharing this draft with other local municipalities so that they can use it as well. And I think that's a wonderful regional effort. I just want to applaud you for reaching out and working with other municipalities as well on this.
Thank you.
Bruce,
Any other questions?
how long do you think until this is implemented?
Tomorrow.
Oh, okay, perfect. It's great.
Yeah, if we're given the go-ahead, then there's some, like I said, we've already had people reach out to us. There's other people, we'll reach out to them, okay? And the the biggest concern or the biggest difference. We're taking a more conservative approach with using the parking lot because what we don't want is somebody not paying attention and mistakenly driving the car into the tables, into the areas. So that's why we're being a little bit more strict on the concrete dead weights. I talked to the chief today, and we would allow them, and they would have to be 4 feet apart. Okay, that way we don't have to worry about, a car mistakenly getting between two of the concrete barriers. But, keep in mind, if somebody is doing a good speed, it'll slow it down, but it's not going to stop it. But it's a lot better than, maybe some, fencing or a split rail fence just to define the area. We're concerned about everybody.
Any other questions for Bruce?
Bruce, has there been any inquiries from the mall? The
No.
tenant for the mall?
No, we haven't heard anything from the mall. We've heard from Pumpernicks and Keystone Homebrew. Keystone Homebrew is the one that went out and did the homework on the concrete dead weights where you can buy them locally and what the pricing was. So I give Jason credit on that.
That's great.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery Township that we hereby approve the attached resolution that establishes guidelines and a policy for limited outdoor sale of merchandise and outdoor dining for existing businesses in the township for a period of 90 days in areas on properties where it might otherwise be prohibited. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 10, consider deed of dedication, Harley Court and Destiny Way, Montgomery Knoll Development. Bruce Shute, Director of Planning and Zoning.
Yes, thank you. This is a old Cutler project, and as the board is aware, the township had to assume responsibility of finishing this project. We had the two homeowners association, Montgomery Walk and Montgomery Preserve, sign off on the deed of dedication documents because the areas in question abut them. So what will be happening here is the roads within the developments, the lights within the development, and the storm sewer and other public improvements within the development. So we're talking Destiny Way and Harley Court, the physical streets, would be dedicated to the township, which is a normal process. The only thing that would not be dedicated is that we would be excluding the curbing, the sidewalk, and the driveway aprons. Those would be the responsibility of the property owner. I live in West Norton Township, and those are my responsibility, which is, the majority of Pennsylvania. So what we're asking is that the board approve, this deed of dedication, and then authorize the township solicitor to record the documents in the recorder of deed, the public works director to register the resolution that is approved by the board at the county pathonetary office, and the township engineer authorized to add these roads to the township's listing and start receiving probably next year liquid fuels for this addition to the roads network, township's road network.
Have all of the street lights been electrified now? I mean, all and because there was still some, last time we talked about it, I think there was still some work that needed to be done there.
There's some on the beginning as you come in off of Enclave Boulevard, off of Bethlehem Pike. There's lights, coming in to the Parkview Development, the one that Toll Brothers is building right now. Those lights have not been energized, but the rest of the lights, within the development, to my understanding, have been energized. It's just those up front, and then Toll Brothers has to, bring the electricity to energize those along Bethlehem Pike. And then Toll Brothers has also agreed to switch their lights over to what we're switching the rest of the township lights over to. So
to the LED.
The LED, so those would be standard in the Parkview Development versus Montgomery Walk, Montgomery Point, and Montgomery Preserve would be using the older style, of lighting, that's presently being used. When we reached out to Toll Brothers, told them we were switching over, they said, just get us the information and we'll get them installed.
Oh, terrific. All right. Any other questions for Bruce? Okay, hearing none. Be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery Township that we hereby accept the deed of dedication for Harley Court and Destiny Way, including streetlights, storm sewer, and other public improvements, but excluding curb, sidewalk, and driveway aprons, in conjunction with the Montgomery Knoll 33 lot subdivision. Be it further resolved that the solicitor is hereby authorized to record the deed in the Montgomery County Courthouse. The Public Works Director is authorized to register this resolution at the Montgomery County Prothonotary Office, and the Township Engineer and Manager are authorized to add these roads to the Township official street map and to advise the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for the purpose of liquid fuels fund allocation. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 11, review of the year-to-date general fund expenditures. Brian Shapiro, Director of Finance.
Hello, good evening. At last meeting, we discussed year-to-date revenues for the township. So tonight, thought it'd be a good idea to discuss year-to-date general fund expenditures, as that question was also asked at that meeting. We're going to concentrate on the general fund, which is the main operating account of the township. This is where the essential activities are accounted for. These include administration services, which is responsible for implementing ordinances and policies passed by the Board of Supervisors, supervising administration of all departments and boards, and preparing and submitting the annual budget. Tax collection and finance, we're responsible for the daily operations of accounts payable and receivable, collection of business privilege and mercantile tax, and payroll. Information technology, they manage the hardware, software, networking of computers in the township. Police services, provide 24 hours a day policing services to the community. Fire protection, provides the township with emergency services 24 hours a day. I have to note in the general fund, fire protection is a small amount, because this only things that are expensed in the general fund for fire protection are workers' compensation, hydrant fees, and the volunteer tax credit. Everything else everything else related to fire protection has its own fund, and all those costs are related there. Code enforcement oversees the township zoning, subdivision, and land development ordinances. They also administer the permits of the township. Public Works maintains roads, parks, open space, recreation lands, streetlights, all township-owned buildings and infrastructure. So on the screen right now is a year-to-date for 2020 budget expenditures and year-to-date expenditures just for the general fund. I talked about the operating expenditures. I just gave a quick highlight summary of what those departments are. There are a couple non-operating expenditures for the township, mainly interfund transfers. Interfund transfers taking monies from the general fund and just transferring it to another fund of the township. It could be the Park and Recreation Fund, it could be the Debt Service Fund, any fund that we have, and those are budgeted for. So those are not considered operating, but the top ones are the main ones for the general fund. One thing I discussed last month about revenues is that revenues are not a month-to-month item. That you can't basically take a straight percentage and based on timing. They're not consistent month to month. For example, the majority of real estate taxes are collected by the end of April, and then very little is collected for the rest of the year. So by the end of April, you're around 92% collected for real estate taxes. And if you're just looking at it based on that, you'd be like, wow, we're really doing good this year, when in reality, that's how it is. We get it all there, and then we get a little more. But because of the general funds, the majority of the expenses in the general fund, 78% are personnel costs, wages, benefits, insurance, and other. They have a more month-to-month trend. For the end of May, most expense categories should be around 42%. Right now, the only expense category on the list that's shown right there is fire protection, which is due to an insurance premium that we paid in January. We paid for the whole year premium in January, which basically took it to the budget for this year. On the next slide, which is our last slide, but I thought it was important, especially with everything that's happening with COVID-19 and possible revenue shortages. It's a 3-year comparison of year-to-date expenditures as 5/31. Like I said, 3 years, so 2018, 2019, and 2020. What I think is important to point out is overall the township has expensed less in 2020 than the prior 2 years. So, usually with an expenditure trend in an operating account each year, it goes up and up due to contractual obligations, insurance premiums going up. So the fact that we are below than we were in 2018 and 2019 is a good place to be at, especially as we move forward. The reason why we're a little bit less than the previous 2 years are the furloughs that were instituted by the township and some reduction costs related to COVID-19. Talking about revenues, last month, following up from last month, I did an update to the revenues where we were from 5/31 from 2019 to 5/31 of 2020, and we are still tracking behind, roughly 7% behind revenues from this point from last year. The two main components of that decrease is the earned income tax and real estate transfer tax, which both had a tax filing deadline extended. I reached out to Berkheimer to talk about that. Their extension was extended till July 15th. So they anticipate seeing a lot of the first quarter revenues start trickling after that July 15th. So even though we're behind by 7%, we should recoup the first quarter reporting that was there. Berkheimer did indicate it's hard to get data points until that information comes in to start predicting. So in August, that's where we'll start seeing trends on earned income tax. As far as real estate tax, the Board of Supervisors extended that deadline to 12/31 of this year. So we're going to see, we're tracking a little behind in real estate taxes, but people who don't have a mortgage are going to take advantage typically and take advantage of the extension and submit their real estate taxes prior to the end of the year. So we should see that money trickling in. So that is where we are for year-to-date expenditures, and just a quick update on revenues. I went probably through that kind of fast. So if there's any questions, please ask.
Any questions for Brian? Great report, Brian. It was a really comprehensive glance, an update on where we're at to date, expenses and for revenue. So I guess it still remains to be seen what the impact is going to be. I guess my one question looking at it was trending, the expenses look like they're aligned with budget, if not a little below. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. Like I said, the only category that's not trending within budget is the fire protection, but all the other categories are well below the 42%. Most are in the 30s. And again, it's due to the furloughs and less overtime because people that are working are not getting overtime and things like that. A great snow season, if however you want to look at it. We had a lack of snow, which helped the snow plowing budget within the general fund. There are a lot of factors that are helping on the expenditure side. It was asked last meeting, how much have we expended on COVID-19 related items? And I had a guess there, but it is closer to, it's 47,000 year to date so far on COVID-19. Working with Bill to, for FEMA reimbursement and PEMA reimbursement. So we're working to recoup any monies that we can for the township.
Great, thanks for that report, Brian.
Thank you.
Right, moving on to agenda item number 12, review of township operations, moving to yellow phase. Carolyn McCreary, Township Manager.
Good evening. I thought tonight would be a good time, since we have moved into the yellow phase, to sort of talk about what the township has been doing. We really haven't touched on this much in our virtual meetings since COVID-19 began, because ironically, we've still been getting the business of the township done. We've put bids out for curb and sidewalk, our road projects, the redoing of one of the hockey courts, the operations that you've done, resolutions, what you've done tonight has, we've just kind of just chugged along. Even in the midst of this, we've been getting work done. And I realized, looking back on the agendas, we really hadn't talked about what's been going on in the township building. So our new normal operations began today, June 8th, with all employees who were working from home reporting back into the office. This had been a phased approach. We just didn't want to take people who for a couple of months were working solely in their, the confines of their home, and then suddenly throw them back into an office environment. It can be unnerving for those who haven't. We're trying to be sensitive to it. We are using both community rooms right now in the township building. One is being used as a second lunchroom because our lunchroom, the way it was set up, was not conducive to social distancing. The other one is housing some public works employees who are working on the streetlight project and overseeing that, as well as who work on our facilities, our traffic signals. It is also being used by one of our IT staff because he previously was working right outside the IT director's door. Those rooms have been a godsend to us in terms of having them in the building. The communications have been a lot easier and them still being able to get their work done in spite of all the limitations that have been put on us. So going forward, the committees are going to be instructed to use the board conference room and to practice social distancing when we are okay to, which will probably be July. Again, we're trying to phase everybody, get everybody accustomed to it. We're going to still use those community rooms for the time being for the staff, especially for public works. That building was never designed for social distancing. They are crammed in there when they have lunch together. We've staggered start times, and moving 2 individuals up into that room has helped tremendously. Further, public access to our building right now is by appointment only. Again, it's just for the comfort of everybody who's there so that they don't go from being home one day to being in the office and seeing people wandering the hall. We're fortunate because we do a lot online. Planning is a perfect example, you know, phone calls, emails, we don't get a lot of foot traffic. So we are fortunate that way. If anyone does come in the building, even by appointment, they are going to be required to wear masks. I don't think this is unreasonable given that every other building you go into, be it the grocery store or to get your car worked on, you're required to wear a mask. New access system, the board had approved our moving forward with that. And Rich Greer, our IT director, has worked with the firm, and we are right now everything is installed. It's a matter of getting the fobs distributed and getting instructions to everyone. Deb Rivas is going to be assigned to the building access, scheduling the doors to open and close based on committee use, things like that. So that is really an amazing step forward for us for a building that's 25 years old. We're also reinforcing the stay home when sick policy. You know, we're not playing games about whether you think it's a symptom of COVID. If you're sick, stay home. I don't care if it's allergies, just again, to be sensitive to everybody. You know how you're in a building now and you hear somebody cough and everybody kind of stops, you know? So this is just, we just have reinforced it with the department heads. We said, you know, we're not going to sit there and make judgment. It's for the safety of everybody. We're trying to watch out, not just for the employees, but for their families as well, and any loved ones they have who might have underlying medical conditions or some other impairment that makes them vulnerable. We're going to continue our Teams meetings for the Board of Supervisors and for the committees for the month of June. And then we will discuss, you know, our comfort level. I already have sort of a plan mapped out on paper as to where you're all going to sit when we resume public meetings. It's going to look very different, but I believe we can do it successfully. As far as the department operations, permit applications have been accepted through the whole COVID pandemic. And I'm really proud of the staff for the creativity they came up with. You know, we had these empty bins from the mail and they put them on a table and they labeled them, and everybody was coming in through the police department, dropping things off, picking things up. Chief Bendig, we were trying to figure out how we could keep people from going too far in the lobby. He dragged a planner over. We put some signs up that said no public beyond this point, and it has worked great. Permit applications were getting processed during COVID-19, and as soon as the governor said construction could restart, we were positioned to issue permits. We weren't just taking in applications, we were actually issuing them and helping people get back to work. The table that is now in the planning department and a plexiglass guard is for when we resume encounter people coming in and talking to township staff. IT, I can't say enough about IT. We started with getting an introduction to Teams, and I will admit I walked out of there thinking, oh gosh, why do I need this? Something else to learn. And Rich Greer and Wes Whitaker look like rock stars because we didn't miss a beat in our work. We were able to conduct department head meetings, staff meetings using Teams, certainly the Board of Supervisors meetings, the committee meetings. We were able to do the town hall last week, and now the BDP is doing a Teams meeting, and now we're seeing commercials for it. So if it's good enough for Bill Gates, certainly it's good enough for us. He also oversaw, in addition to all this, as I said, the installation of the security for the building, which was really a priority. Finance, they took key processes and they figured out how to do them remotely and do them well, including paying invoices, paying all the personnel. They placed a bin in the lobby for residents to drop off payments, whether they were for finance or whether they were for the sewer authority, whether they were for the tax collector. And then subsequent, Brian got with Public Works. We ordered a drop box. In the midst of all this, a concrete pad was installed outside the police department because people are going to feel more comfortable dropping off a payment, maybe off hours, when they see that the building's lit there and there's someone sitting there. So, I can't say enough for how, they just rolled right in and got what was, what needed to be done. As far as administration and HR, you approved the temporary telecommuting policy, which, you adopted at the May 11th meeting. They've adopted policies and guidelines for the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, and SHADE and the administration and HR staff have been bombarded daily from every source imaginable with information about COVID, information about what we should be doing as an employer, information about what should be giving to our employees. And they had to not only collate it all, but determine which sources were really valid so that we could give out information that was reliable and that also wasn't redundant. We have purchased signs from a local business so that when you come in the building, you are going to see social distancing signs. You are going to see signs that tell people how many people can be in the lunchroom, a reminder to wash hands. A plexigard shield was put in for the receptionist area, and they just have stepped in above and beyond. They never imagined they were going to be doing this, I'm sure. Public Works, they assisted staff with setting up, I said, a second room where employees can have their lunch. They worked with the finance director to change the layout of the finance department so that there's wider berths walking with employees. They're working to install a hands-free sinks, hands-free soap dispensers in all the township buildings. We had money allocated for the township building in our 2020 budget. We never imagined we would be using it for things to protect us from another pandemic coming. Anyone who was on the town hall heard Dr. Akush say, this is like a cold virus. This isn't a flu where it's seasonal, just like, people who get colds in the summer. COVID can be in the summer and in the fall and in the winter. So we have to think long term. How can we protect the staff? How can we protect any visitor coming in? And hands-free is the way to go. So we're working on that. And then finally, we have found a way to procure standalone hand sanitizers for when people come into the building. So each entrance, that was like gold. And finally, somebody emailed us and said, hey, we've got them back in stock. So we are moving forward. We are following everything that the state and the county are giving us, and I'm really proud to be part of this.
We're proud to have you organizing all of this and managing this. I mean, we'll talk about managing well and effectively in a very fluid environment with things rapidly changing. And I really applaud your effort, Carolyn, and the way that you have empowered your team also. There's such great energy, I feel like, in Montgomery Township and the staff and the leadership there. So a lot of that is absolutely due to you and the energy you have brought this role. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Any other feedback from the board or questions?
Great job.
Thanks.
I do have one quick question though, and I don't know if you saw this or heard this about the new approach that the county has adopted with regard to youth sports in
I heard. In fact, we had an email already about it. We responded back that we weren't prepared. The managers in North Penn area, talk about another group of great individuals, have been in communication with each other. One of them gave us a heads up that this was coming out. We have some real questions. Obviously everybody wants kids to be able to get out and play again. So we know practices are going to be permitted, but there were certain questions about not allowing non-essential people there. For those parks that have restrooms, they're supposed to be disinfected between groups of users. So we have a lot of questions. We're going to make it work. Our tennis courts are open. We are lining in outdoor courts for pickleball tomorrow, and then we will have outdoor pickleball available. We are working on, everything we can within the confines of the state. But as of Friday, the state was telling us no practices until green, and the county, I didn't know this, but there were organizations working with their state reps trying to really push and say, can't we at least do practices? It's my understanding it's non-contact sports. It's baseball and softball. We actually had a request asking if it would be okay to hold a dodgeball game with 15 kids, and we said no, baseball, softball. So,
but MTBSA has already canceled their spring season.
That's my understanding. Yes.
So, so in terms of baseball and softball in Montgomery Township, that's been canceled, right? So they're not going to suddenly come back and say, wait, not canceled.
Well, it was, I believe, someone from MTBSA who emailed us on the general township email, and I'm not sure what their thoughts are, whether they're looking at practicing for maybe fall, summer, I don't know. We haven't, that email came in late this afternoon, and I haven't even had a chance to sit down and really talk with Floyd and Kevin about, how, even what the condition of the fields are. We were just trying to keep up with the mowing in this spring, and we need to know, how we're going to manage this, and what do we do about people who also want to get out and use our facilities and don't want to necessarily find out there's people already using it in an organized fashion. So we have some questions internally that we're going to have to answer, but we're not going to be an impediment, just like we haven't been in anything else we've done. We're trying to work with the guidelines we're given. It's just there's some challenges and some questions that we need answers to.
We actually did have a question come in from Andrew Hastad. I don't know if anybody else saw that. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for tuning in. He says, hi, everyone. What is the plan or criteria to reopen the outdoor playgrounds?
Green phase is my understanding.
So you don't think that the new ruling by the county is going to change that?
No, what I read was specifically geared towards organized youth baseball and softball practices in Montgomery County.
Okay. All right. Anything more, Carolyn?
No, great job, Carolyn.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item number 13, consider payment of bills. I'll move that we pay them as outlined.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
I'm sorry? Any opposed? All right, motion carried. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I see another question.
Hold on a second.
One more question.
There is another question that popped in.
Yes, it came in actually somewhere in the middle of the meeting. It's from Albert Gelson. What enforcement mechanisms will be in place to make sure that businesses comply with the guidelines established for reopening?
Good question. Carolyn, do you want to take that one?
Certainly, as it's been in the past, the township has not taken an enforcement approach. When it came to our attention that businesses were open, we did, go and talk to them. In some cases, the business had an exemption, which they were able to produce. In others, they did not, but we have not been given the charge to be able to enforce this. I really think in phase yellow, it's going to be the power of the purse. I think as an individual, if I were to go to a business and I don't think they're practicing social distancing or other safe measures, I'm going to walk out and go someplace else. I would imagine the state still has their I don't want to say hotline, but their phone number and their email that you can notify them about businesses that are not compliant, but we do not have the enforcement power to do anything at this moment.
And Carolyn, just to piggyback off of that question there, if you could address what will be done with the outdoor dining and shopping resolution that we passed today that Bruce had gone over, and what enforcement there may be for that. If that's the same situation, that's fine. But I just know that question actually came in around that time. So just in case that's what Mr. Gelson was getting at with his question.
Okay. Well, that we can enforce. That would be a matter of code enforcement. If it comes to our attention, that there are someone who's setting up outdoor dining and does not have the proper distancing or has taken up handicap spots, we do have the ability to go out and tell them that they have to shut it down. Because this is your standards that you're putting in place. This was not coming from the state. The state has given the guideline that they can do outdoor seating, but they did not tell them how. So and I agree with Bruce totally, I do not want a phone call that there was a tragedy because somebody just took some folding chairs or roped it off as their designated dining area.
Thanks, Carolyn.
All right, is there any other business to come before the board? I don't see any other questions in our chat. All right, seeing none, I'll make a move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Stay safe, everyone.
You too.
Thanks.